Welcome, everyone, to the Friday Night Build Show. I am your host, Ben Estrino, over here at the Empower Gaming Computer Studio. And tonight, we build. It's Friday night, so may as well celebrate Friday night with a build. Hey, I got swords. What's up? How's it going over there, man? And User Vert, what's up, man? 638 already is wild. Yes, sir. 638 builds this year. Wild number. It's a lot of builds. It's a lot of PC builds. The goal's 1,200, so we'll have hopefully a very strong holiday season. That's usually how it works. It's usually light, or usually really heavy in the beginning of the year, and then it gets super light during the summer, and then it gets really heavy in the winter, right around the holidays. So I'm the guy you're messing up. Nice, man. Welcome to the stream. Hang out. Learn. Hey, I got swords. Thanks for the sub, sir. The resub. I appreciate you. But as you can probably see, this camera here, this is our backup camera. I also don't have a side camera currently. The side camera is my backup camera because the Logitech Rally, the $1,200 camera, decided to just stop working, so it's over there on the table. Logitech is sending a replacement, so we will have a replacement here tomorrow. Yay! Thank you for all the other builds that we're going to be doing, which I'm hopefully going to be doing a couple more tomorrow, as well as this one. So more streams tomorrow, and we will have a very exciting big build with custom paint and some custom graphics and custom glass etching coming up as well. Super excited for that one. You're at your daughter's football game. She's in a marching band. Oh, nice, man. Well, does she play an instrument in the marching band, or is she doing anything specific there? 10 months strong, brother. Hey, thanks, man. It's gonna earn you a spot. Which, by the way, if you're still streaming, I don't know if you are or not, because I haven't seen you really live. Hit me up. Flute. Oh, nice. My dad actually played flute, and can't remember if it was my wife or somebody else played flute that I knew very well. So, what high school does she play for? I Got Swords is actually local too, so well, local-ish. But anyway, all right. So tonight we're going to be building a pretty awesome PC, and this is actually going to be for a, I believe this one was for a racing sim setup. So this is going to be running a racing sim setup or a simulator setup of some sort. I can't remember exactly the conversation because I've talked to so many people in the last week and a half now that my brain just goes fuzzy. You're talking to me about streaming, Ben? Yeah, I got swords. If you're streaming still, let me know. Or go look at my website and click the hamburger icon and look at the bottom of the hamburger icons. Or if you're on a PC, you might just see it at the top there. But let me know if you're interested. All right, so we're gonna run through the setup here that we're going to be building with today. So today we're going to be doing the Core i7 12700K. So this is Intel's 12th generation CPU. It has 12 cores, 20 threads, and a maximum boost of, or turbo of 5.0 gigahertz, which is a very fast, powerful CPU, especially for any type of multimedia or even streaming. You could stream off the CPU and get really good results. It's got a lot of horsepower on a single PC setup. You don't need a dual PC stream setup to stream anymore. In my opinion, I think that's a waste of money going forward, especially if you're going into an i9. Definitely avoid dual PC setups. But this CPU is the 12700K that we're building with today. It's a super awesome CPU, like I said, very balanced, has a lot of multi-core, or has the what is it, 12 cores, and the extra threads on it, so it does a really good job with multitasking, and also can handle a pretty beefy card. So if you're running a pretty large graphics card, which we are in this one, which is a 4070 Ti, then you want kind of a beefy card or CPU that will handle, so you don't have any like you want the 7950X 3D. Jeez, dude, I'm not an Intel fanboy, but Intel 13900K is kicking AMD's ass, in my opinion, performance-wise, and overclockability, or the ability to overclock it. I think the 13900K runs better, cooler, and outperforms the 7950X 3D, which is just a heat hog, or heater. What's the difference between F and K for the Intel CPUs? Okay, K is overclockable. So there's actually three different types. You have the K, which is overclockable. Then you have the F, which means no integrated graphics. And then you have no letter. So you'll see Intel 12700 without a K or without an F. That means it has integrated graphics, but it is not overclockable. It's not unlocked. The K means it's unlocked and it has integrated graphics. That's what it means. The simple way to understand it. The F means there's no integrated graphics. So if you're going to plug this CPU into the motherboard and not install a graphics card with an F series Intel CPU, you will not have any display out of that motherboard. It has no integrated graphics. So that is the big difference. F means no integrated graphics. Is K better? Yes. Especially in performance PCs, because they are overclockable. You can do more with them. They're unlocked. The non-K is more of your office CPU, which is just meant to go in a PC and it is going to run at the stock settings its entire life. Oh, I'm behind, LOL. My bad. No, you're fine, man. No, you're right. You're right. Is K better? Yes. K is better. Yes. K is better. You are right, sir. You're not wrong. What about GX and none for Ryzen? So G for the Ryzen it is integrated graphics. G is the only series that has integrated graphics all the way up until Ryzen 7000 series. So if you see a Ryzen 5 3400G, that means it has integrated graphics. Means you don't need a video card to run the PC. You can run it with just that CPU and get video out of the motherboard. The X is just a faster version of the CPU, really, is what it comes down to. It's slightly faster, or it's got a bigger cache on it or something. You'll have to pull it up, you know, and look at them piece by piece next to each other to see what the actual difference is. But it generally means it's just a faster CPU, or it has a larger cache. But when you get to the 7000 series, I believe all of the 7000 series have integrated graphics now. Could be wrong, but the G is pretty much is gone on the 7000 series. And that's for your Ryzen 5 7600 or your Ryzen 7 7700X or 7800 or whatever. Although that series, the 7000 series, all has integrated graphics, I believe, now, and the G is no longer used. I'll have to text you later, Ben. I can't really hear the stream too well. Oh, no worries, man. Thanks for popping in and hanging out, sir. Enjoy your kids' marching band. Tell her Ben over in Empower gives her a shout out. The band is loud. No worries, man. Don't worry. No worries, man. Go enjoy it. All right, so we got the i7 12700K. We have a contact frame. If you are building Intel LGA 1700, this is something you should be doing by default by now, and that is using a contact plate or a contact bracket, which goes over the CPU. You'll see it here when we build. We'll see you later, man. This helps prevent the CPU from slightly buckling while you have stress on it from the CPU cooler, etc., or you're tight. It just keeps it flat. It maintains flat, and the flatter the CPU is, the better the contact it is from the cooler, which is your the cooler that we're going to be using, which we haven't talked about yet. But the better the flatter it is, the better the contact to the cooler, the copper plate on the cooler that goes on top of the CPU, and the better the contact equals better cooling. So this little guy, which is like $8 or $9 on Amazon by Thermalright, is it makes about anywhere from 5 to 10 degree Celsius difference, depending on the rest of the configuration. But it makes such a big difference for $8 to $10 that you're just silly not doing it. So we have that for the CPU. So we have the CPU, the 12700K, the contact frame. We're going to be using Thermal Grizzly Cryonut, which is some of the best paste, or we're going to be using, if I run out, the NZXT NTH2, which I have as a backup because I couldn't get Thermal Grizzly Cryonut in number one, it's really hard to get at a really good price. It's super expensive, so when the price is up, that means their inventory is low. So I'm trying to wait until their inventory comes back around so I can buy more, because that's when their price comes back down. So just a waiting game on their inventory. But anyway, moving on. So we're going to be cooling it with the Lian Li Galahad 2. This is the Galahad 2 Trinity Performance. And the difference between the Performance and the other Galahad 2 Trinities is that the radiator is slightly bigger, and the fans that come with the radiator, the cooler, are slightly larger as well. So you get a little bit more fan, and you get a little bit more radiator, which equals a little bit more cooling on a 360 millimeter AIO. So this is a really good cooler, especially if you're running an i7 12 or 13th gen, or an i9. This can run an i9 or a Ryzen 9 7950X 3D. It will run it, yes. Although the AMD CPUs are running a little hotter. So it's a great cooler, highly recommend it. I've used it several times in builds now, and I've really liked the performance version of this lineup over any of the other versions. Let's see here. Outside of that, we're going to be using a MSI Pro Z690A Wi-Fi DDR4 motherboard, so we are running DDR4, not DDR5, and we have two kits of 16 gigabytes, making up 32 gigs total. So these are each 8 gig. There's 4 8 gig sticks here, so that's 32 gigs of G-Skill Ripjaws 5, or the V. And this is just really solid RAM that's been around forever. And this is DDR4 3200 megahertz at CL16, so really good timing, or decent timing, and just all around solid RAM. G-Skill is probably, in my opinion, number one when it comes to RAM. They're always leading the way. Okay, outside of that, we do have a 1 terabyte M.2 Gen 4 SSD. This is about the same performance, or very close to the same performance as the Samsung 980 Pro, but the write speeds are a little bit less. But in this case, he only needs it for launching the games, which is going to be the reading speeds, which is 7,000 megabits per second, which is going to make it really snappy when he's loading into games and starting up the PC and loading into software, etc. It's just going to make it all around really snappy for him. And that's what we wanted. We didn't need all the extra, because he's not going to be doing any like crazy video editing, for example, on the PC. And if he ever does, we could always upgrade, and no big deal. So, and storage is pretty cheap. Okay, so outside of that, we have the RTX 4070 Ti by Zotac. This is Zotac Gaming Trinity OC. This is an extremely powerful card. It's equivalent to an RTX 3090. But it draws way less power. So it does have, less VRAM total than the RTX 3090, but in the end, you're getting about the same performance with less power draw, which is good because the less power you're drawing and then creating in the system or using in the system, the less heat you're generating, which means less cooling or heating problems or heating cooling problems, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be powering the entire system with an MSI 1000 or 850 watt, and this is the MSI MPG 850G PCIe 5.0. So this power supply has that PCIe 5.0 cable that you need for your RTX 4070 Ti and up, or that you want. You don't need it, but it's preferred because it has a direct connection from the card to the power supply, and it eliminates the failure points on the card, which is great. And that's what you really want to do with PCIe 5.0, which is a 600 watt cable. That means there's a tremendous amount of power running through a single cable to the card from the power supply, and you want to eliminate any fail points, or as many as you can. So having a direct connection from the card to the power supply is massively improving. Don't use any of those adapters. That's just my opinion. I prefer not to. It just, you're setting yourself up for possible issues, not guaranteed, but possible issues in the future, especially if something comes loose or if you don't plug it in all the way right. So, and that's another thing. It's very important to make sure you do plug these cables in completely. Don't, always double check those cables, those connections. Don't just plug it in and assume it's good. Make sure you look at it very closely. Pull a magnifying glass out if you have to. I don't care. But just take a deep look at it and verify that it's flush. And I'll show you in this build too. Should be a pro by this point, Ben. I am a pro, man. I am a pro. All right. I'll never be a pro at streaming, but I'm a pro at building. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the build. I guess the last thing I didn't talk about is the case, which we're building in a Lian Li Landcool 216 ATX mid tower. It's got the tempered glass side panel. It's got a front mesh. It includes the two 160mm fans on the front, which are addressable RGB, and the rear 140mm fan on the rear. So it's got a lot of good value for about $109 on the case. It's really good. It just super all around solid case to build in. Highly recommend it if you're looking for a nice case. There's a cheaper option that has very similar features by Montech, which is the Montech Air 903 Max, but this one has a little bit better quality on the build, and I would prefer to get the quality case over the let's save a few bucks case. But don't get me wrong, I love that Montech case for the budget. So when I'm trying to squeeze pennies to fit, a bigger card in, I will go to the case and say, well, tough luck, buddy, you're getting this case because we can get you a better card instead. So that's where it makes sense. And it's still the Montech case. I love it. It's still a great case. And it's not that it feels flimsy or anything. Not at all. It actually feels like a solid case. It's just the fans. I know the fans in this Lian Li build or case is going to be higher quality, which are included and I'm going to use in the build, versus Montech fans I know are a little bit cheaper. So it's those fans in the Montech case will probably last a year or two. These I know will last for 3 years at least. So you get more time on them, because most fans have a rating of life, a life rating, or how many times they rotate before the bearings start causing problems. Okay, so let's move on to our different top-down view here, and we'll get started with the build. We're going to move some of this out of the way because we don't need all of it right away. For example, we don't need the graphics card, we don't need the motherboard, or we do need the motherboard, I'm sorry, but we don't need the power supply. Need that, need these. We will need this in a minute. But we're going to start with the motherboard, the CPU, the RAM, and the SSD. We're just going to open up the motherboard, pull this guy out. I don't think we're going to need that. Leave it out just in case. We will need that. Okay, so what we're going to do is open up the CPU, drop it into this pins, and then we're going to install this bracket that I was talking about. This bracket, LGA 1700 contact frame. But we're going to put the CPU in so we don't bend any of the pins by accident. The last thing I want to do is screw up a $200 motherboard. Or 200 plus. Because all these pins are on the motherboard. We don't want to mess those up. Pins are not on the CPUs anymore, except for AMD AM4. That's the last remaining CPU with pins on it. So we put the CPU in here. Now, we're going to get our contact plate out. Because it has the tool that we're going to need to remove the screws. We're going to remove the bracket here and place our new bracket in to replace it. Does that make sense? No, probably not. We're removing this bracket and putting a better bracket in. And really all we got to do is remove the old ones, put the plate over the CPU, grab the screws, drop the screws in. Also very important not to move the motherboard at this stage. And then we just go around tightening these screws little by little. Until they're snug. You want to try to keep them as even as possible. That's why I went around and was tightening them little by little as I went around. Alright, so those stock brackets get sent with the PC, along with the tool, in case he ever has to remove the CPU in the future. You will have the tool to do it. Now for the SSD, we're just going to cut the package open because these stupid packages are really a big pain in the ass to open. Nobody wants to spend time doing that. And we'll remove the heat spreader from the M.2 slot. Also remove the thermal pad protector plastic shield thing, and we'll slot our SSD in, drop the SSD into place and lock it in. And then we'll put the heatsink back on, the heat spreader, and tighten that down to lock it in. M.2 SSD is now installed. Moving on to our 4 sticks of DDR4 3200. One thing I am going to do, since we have 4 sticks and they're 2 separate kits, is make sure the same kits and the same paired slots, I guess you can call them. That means I'll install the first pair first. Now I'm not going to go 1 to 1. I'm going to go skip one and go to the next. Just as an example here. I always pair up the kits. Something I've always done. Never had a problem doing that. So if it works, don't change it. And normally it's because these are the 2 that are paired together, and the closest out of the manufacturer paired together. So I just want it running as a team. So even though they're the same speeds, they could be slightly different. Each stick could be different. So there we go. We got 32 gigs of DDR4 3200 megahertz RAM installed. 4 8-gig sticks. We got our i7-12700K installed. And then a 1 terabyte Gen 4 SSD installed onto the motherboard. So next, we're actually going to pull out the cooler so that we can get the mounting hardware for the cooler so that we can put it on before we put the motherboard in the case, which will be the next step after that. So I'm going to set this aside and get our cooler. Again, this is the Lian Li Galahad 2. That's their second version. Trinity Performance. So this is the performance model, which is a little bit bigger radiator and better, a little bit bigger fans as well. It's got a hint of RGB on the block, which is cool. Since we're already in the package, I'm just gonna pull this out anyway and get this box out of our base. Then we're going to go in and get the mounting hardware out of the hardware bag that's included with the cooler. This is our 1700 bracket that we need. And this is an AMD standoff change if we needed to change it out, which we don't because we're not going to be building with AMD. We'll need this to install the actual cooler. Sorry, radiator. Alright, so I'm going to peel these so that they stick. But that way it doesn't accidentally fall off. This is LGA 1700. 1700 is the socket size. And then I'm putting these little black studs, or washers, so to speak, spacers, over the studs. Alright, so our mounting hardware is added to the motherboard and we're ready to go into the case. So we'll get our case out. Heavy bugger. All right, so this is our Lian Li Land Cool 216, which, right. I'm just gonna remove the glass panel, the top panel, and everything that we need to remove anyway. There we go. Then we need our mounting hardware kit, which is included here. Included with the case. Then we're going to put our back plate in. It's always nice to put your back plate in before you put your motherboard in, because if you don't, you're kind of screwed. So much work to put this in after you put your motherboard in. Most motherboards today have them built into the motherboard now, so it's rare to see those anymore. But on like Pro Series boards, they usually have them. There we go. We got all our studs lined up there. We're ready to take 9 screws and mount the motherboard. You could do this standing up as well. The case standing up, but I'm just facing down for the camera. Make it easier. Alright, there we go. So the next thing I'm going to do is probably get the power supply out so I can get our EPS cables installed. Because the last thing I want to do is install this cooler and not be able to get those EPS cables plugged in. We're going to do that really quick. Power supply, where art thou? Be right here. They've been telling you. Make sure it's plugged in all the way. Very important. Because it's an industry problem with people not doing that and then blaming either the power supply or the graphics card when it's actually user error. I've witnessed it firsthand. Probably didn't need to get the whole power supply out, but yeah. Might start doing power supplies early again. Screw it. Just put the damn thing in. Why not? Why shouldn't I? CPU. Twist ties. Lots of twist ties. Just plugging all our cables into the power supply. Promise I'm not just twiddling my thumbs here. This is our 600 watt cable that you want to be gentle with. This is the one that you also want to make sure is flush 100%. Make sure all your cables are, but this one is extremely important. So mainly the whole point of doing all that was so we can get the 8-pin plugged in. The two EPS 8 pins on the CPU up here plugged in before we install the cooler. Because once we install the cooler, it's going to be a pain in the butt to get up here and plug these in. And we want path of least resistance in this case. What the heck? There we go. And we can move on to plugging in the rest of this, the case cables here. They're tied up here. Or velcroed up here, rather. We got a USB-C. Goes up here. Plugs into the USB-C header. Almost all motherboards nowadays have them, but not all of them do. So, gotta be mindful of that. Most of them do. Not all of them do, though. Most of them do, though. Anyway, moving on. We got a USB 3.0 header, which we're going to just plug in right here. Right below the 24 pin for the power supply. Nice and clean. Yeah. There we go. Beautiful. Alright, so next, we've got a front panel power connection and HD audio. So our power button. And our HD audio need to get plugged in. Our HD audio is always at the bottom of the board, towards the back of the case. And then our front panel connector for our power button, which is normally at the front of the case at the bottom of the board. It's usually labeled JFP1 or something like that. Front panel FP. Then we have our power cord for our graphics card here. It's underwater. I'll just kind of let it sit there. The rest of this is pretty much not going to be used outside of maybe one for the hub. And that's it. Alright, rotating. We're actually ready to slap this cooler in there. I'm going to go ahead and get this unpackaged. Get our mounting screws ready, so we're ready to receive. When we're ready, let's put it in, which we're ready now. You get your wee bugger button there, sir. I did not give you permission to leave. Big cooler. Now,